I want to demonstrate for you a book preview, a Think Aloud Preview. Before I just begin reading the novel, I want to activate some before reading strategies that I know will help put me on the right start for reading this novel. The novel I am demonstrating for you is The Glass Castle. First, I want to think about some before reading strategies. The first one I know I need to do is set a purpose. And the purpose for reading this novel is to improve reading skills and to complete a reading literature log. It's not just for fun, though I hope to enjoy and hope you enjoy this novel as well. So in previewing this novel, it's obvious we're going to start with the front cover. Don't we always look at the front cover when we pick up a book, right? As I'm doing my Think Aloud and previewing the book, you'll notice I'm trying to activate my prior knowledge and build up that knowledge as I go. We see at the top it's a #1 New York Times bestseller. So that means it's popular, it's sold many copies. And the title is The Glass Castle. Now when I think of a castle, I don't really picture a glass one. I'm thinking of castles maybe in the medieval times with a magnificent stone architecture like the tower or called the keep in the middle, or perhaps the wall enclosing the bailey or courtyard around the tower. And I always imagine those raised sections on top with gaps in them along the top of a castle wall where defenders could fire arrows and hide behind the raised walls. I kind of get a picture of a drawbridge and a moat surrounding the castle. That's what comes to my mind when I see the word castle, but I've never seen one made out of glass. So because this is the title and such oddity to me, it must have some type of irony or great meaning to the story. As I look in the middle of the book, I see a little girl, perhaps the author when she was a girl, with her hand cupped over her mouth, like she's whispering to another little girl. Now, I know when you whisper something, like I used to do when I was a child, you're trying maybe to keep it a secret or you don't want anyone else to hear it. Well, this makes me wonder why this picture is on the cover. Is there something, perhaps the author had a secret? Or are there secrets that are to be told in this book? As I scroll down to the bottom of the cover of the book, I see the author's name, Jeannette Walls. While I'm not familiar with her other books, I have come across Jeannette Walls and learned that she is a reporter, or at one time she was. It lists the other books that she has written, and then there's a quote or review from a notable People magazine, basically saying that the author is able to transform her sad memories into fine art. So that's a compliment. And then at the very bottom it says a memoir. So now I know this is a book, a true book based on the author's memories. One other thing I want to mention is that I don't know about you, but when I pick up a book and look at the cover, I always flip it to the back and read the back cover. This helps me determine if it's something I'm interested in. Just briefly, I see awards mentioned and I see quotes by some prominent names, book reviews, so forth. Then I see a small description of the book, just enough to give me a glimpse of what the book will be about, enough to motivate me to read it, but no spoilers. And then the bottom section gives some information about the author, and that is very common to do. It mentions her education and other books she has written. As I stated before, I was digging around to learn more about the author, especially since I was going to introduce this novel to a college class. Well, I learned she had been a reporter and she wrote for gossip columns for The Enquirer and for MSNBC called The Snoop, basically dishing out celebrity dirt, which is ironic as she was hiding her own past during that time. and she had also contributed to other magazines. I also learned that she is from Welch, West Virginia. And most of the story takes place there, although that's not where it begins. Now, if you know anything about West Virginia, it's a hilly, somewhat mountainous region and has a lot of poor areas. Especially, this area is a desolate area. I can make a personal connection to this as I went for a brief time to West Virginia and saw some of these areas. But I'm also from East Tennessee and in the Appalachia region, and there are some familiar ways of life from the lifestyle of the Appalachia people, their culture, and some of the poverty. Also, I came across a few articles about the author, one being called A Secret of Her Own, and that made me think that yes, that picture on the cover has something to do about her secrets. This is added in the book just to emphasize to the reader that this book has been given a lot of praise. So it must be a good book. I mean, they've got a couple pages listed as praise for the Glass Castle. As I flipped through the beginning of the book, I also noticed that Jeannette Walls has included a picture of her parents' wedding day. And as I turn the pages of the book, and this is the title page, and this is the dedication page. I see that she dedicates it to her husband, John. And then I come to the acknowledgments page, and I always like to read the acknowledgments page. This page is usually included in books as a way for authors to acknowledge or to thank certain people in their life for one reason or another when they were writing the book. What I want to mention here is that I noticed right away that she's thanking people in her immediate family. Brian, her brother, her mother, her sister Lori, her younger sister Maureen, and then I see she thanks her father too. So no matter what she tells in the book, I can tell she's still grateful or appreciates them in some way. She includes an epigraph, a poem that is unique. This poem says, "Dark is a way and light is a place. Heaven that never was nor will be ever is always true." This is Dylan Thomas's poem on his birthday. This poem is about how every year on your birthday you are 1 year closer to death. We may live in a realm of toil and struggle, but perhaps heaven is our ultimate destination away from this world. This may be an appropriate poem to use as an epigraph in a book that celebrates Jeanette's dead father. Maybe here she is implying the hope that he's in heaven and that she hopes to be one day too. Maybe this book sees the blessings of hurts and wounds and trials and struggles that the author went through, and that those are purposeful, as this epigraph implies. As I flip through the book and look at the structure of how this book is written, I notice that there's not a table of contents, not really any chapters either, but instead there are some main sections, 5 in all. Now that we've previewed, it's time to begin the actual reading. I see that the first section is entitled "A Woman on the Street." That's all it says. So now I'm wondering, what woman? What's that got to do with it? I turn to page 3 and I begin to read. Now I want to consciously be an active reader and use my during reading strategies, starting with focusing my full attention. Am I in a place to read where it's quiet with no distractions from people or noises? I want to remember to monitor my comprehension as I am reading. I don't want to go pages and then not know what I read. For me, that's pausing every so often and asking myself, what did I just read? And then rephrasing it or retelling the story. I want to look to make personal connections with myself. Or maybe I read something and it reminds me of something I read in another book. or a movie I've seen, or even to something that's going on in the world. I want to remember to react emotionally with a text. I want to see this story in my head like a movie, that is taking place. I want to visualize it. And I want to allow my emotions to come into the story, whether it's anger or sadness. See, I don't know how you can read this book and you not show any of these emotions. So here we go. I was sitting in a taxi, wondering if I had overdressed for the evening, when I looked out the window and saw Mom rooting through a dumpster. Whoa, hang on. She's dressed up for an evening out. She's in her taxi and she sees her mom going through a dumpster. What's going on here? It was just after dark. A blustery March wind whipped the steam coming out of the manholes, and people hurried along the sidewalks with their collars turned up. I was stuck in traffic 2 blocks from the party where I was heading. Okay, I realized she must be in a big city. Because there's taxis and there's manholes and there's sidewalks and lots of people and lots of traffic. Mom stood 15 feet away. She had tied rags around her shoulders to keep out the spring chill and was picking through the trash while her dog, a black and white terrier mix, played at her feet. I can relate. I've got a little dog and it likes to play at my feet too. Mom's gestures were all familiar. The way she tilted her head and thrust out her lower lip when studying items of potential value that she'd hoisted out of the dumpster. The way her eyes widened with childish glee when she found something she liked. Have you ever seen or recognized somebody from far away just because of the way their body language is? They do the same kind of things and you can recognize them. Her long hair was streaked with gray, tangled, and matted, and her eyes had sunk deep into their sockets. But still, she reminded me of the mom she'd been when I was a kid, swan diving off cliffs and painting in the desert and reading Shakespeare aloud. Her cheekbones were still high and strong, but the skin was parched and ruddy from all those winters and summers exposed to the elements. Okay, she's recognizing parts of her mom. It's still her mom. It says the mom's skin was parched and ruddy. Parched, meaning dried out, and ruddy, like deep wrinkles, like in a road. You might see some deep little wrinkles in the road, basically. To the people walking by, she probably looked like any of the thousands of homeless people in New York City. Okay, so now I know where she is. New York City, and her mom is like the other homeless people in New York City. It had been months since I laid eyes on Mom, and when she looked up, I was overcome with panic that she had seen me and call out my name, and that someone on the way to the same party would spot us together and Mom would introduce herself and my secret would be out. Okay, here she introduces the word secret. Is that her secret? Her mom doing what, maybe doing what she is or on the streets, or does her mom have some secret on her, on Jeannette, that Jeannette doesn't want known? I slid down the seat and asked the driver to turn around and take me home to Park Avenue. Okay. Park Avenue, I know that's a very expensive street in New York City. The taxi pulled up in front of my building. The doorman held the door for me, and the elevator man took me up to my floor. Okay, so I know she does live in a very expensive place. She's got a doorman and the elevator man to push the buttons for her. My husband was working late, as he did most nights, and the apartment was silent except for the click of my heels on the polished wood floor. I was still rattled from seeing Mom. The unexpectedness of coming across her. The sight of her rooting happily through the dumpster. I put some Vivaldi on, hoping the music would settle me down. Okay, so we've got Jeannette. She's back in her very nice and very expensive home. She's listening to some classical music here, trying to settle down because she was rattled by seeing her mom going through the dumpsters. I looked around the room. There were the turn-of-the-century bronze and silver vases and the old books with worn leather spines that I'd collected at flea markets. There were the Georgian maps I had framed, the Persian rugs, and the overstuffed leather armchair I liked to sink into at the end of the day. Okay, so again, a description of a very nice place. And I can make a connection with that armchair because at the end of the day, there's a special place I like to sit after a long, hard day and just relax. I tried to make a home for myself here, tried to turn the apartment into the sort of place where the person I wanted to be would live. But I could never enjoy the room without worrying about Mom and Dad huddled on a sidewalk grate somewhere. Okay, so her mom and dad are both homeless here. And she states that she worries about them, so that makes me feel a little better. She didn't just run from her mom away in the taxi, but she actually worries about them. I fretted about them, but I was embarrassed by them too and ashamed of myself for wearing pearls and living on Park Avenue while my parents were busy keeping warm and finding something to eat. What could I do? I tried to help them countless times, but Dad would insist they didn't need anything, and Mom would ask for something silly like a perfume atomizer or a membership in a health club. They said they were living the way they wanted to. Okay, so apparently Jeannette had tried to help them countless times, but they insist they don't want anything except to make some silly remark like a membership in a fancy health club or one of those fancy perfume bottles, right? If you're homeless, that is not going to be at the top of your list for necessities. After ducking down the taxi so Mom wouldn't see me, I hated myself, hated my antiques, my clothes, and my apartment. I had to do something, so I called a friend of Mom's and left a message. It was our system of staying in touch. It always took Mom a few days to get back to me, but when I heard from her, she sounded, as always, cheerful and casual, as though we'd had lunch the day before. Okay, I just made a personal connection there because I have an uncle that I always fret and worry about him, and the only way I can usually get a hold of him is to call a place where he walks to eat breakfast daily and check through a friend on how he's doing. I told her I wanted to see her and suggested she drop by the apartment, but she wanted to go to a restaurant. She loved eating out, so we agreed to meet for lunch at her favorite Chinese restaurant. So she enjoys loving eating out, like my family. Mom was sitting at a booth, studying the menu when I arrived. She'd made an effort to fix herself up. She wore a bulky gray sweater with only a few light stains and black leather men's shoes. She'd washed her face, but her neck and temples were still dark with grime. So this is her mom fixed up, right? She still has a sweater, the nicest one I guess she's got. So it's got a few stains on it. And she's wearing men's shoes. And even though she'd washed her face, she didn't do a very good job because her face, around her temples and her neck are still grimy. She waved enthusiastically when she saw me. "It's my baby girl," she called out. I kissed her cheek. Mom had dumped all the plastic packets of soy sauce and duck sauce and hot and spicy mustard from the table into her purse. Now she emptied a wooden bowl of dried noodles into it as well. "A little snack for later on," she explained. Have you ever done that? Taken like ketchup packets or something with you so you could have it for later? But she does more than that, doesn't she? She takes apparently all the little plastic packets and even food. We ordered. Mom chose the seafood delight. "You know how I love my seafood," she said. She started talking about Picasso. She'd seen a retrospective of his work and decided he was hugely overrated. All the Cubist stuff was gimmicky, as far as she was concerned. He hadn't really done anything worthwhile after his Rose period. Now I find this interesting. Here you have this homeless woman, and she is talking about Picasso and is familiar with some of the history of his artwork. So it seems like she has an interest, or at least some knowledge, on art. "I'm worried about you," I said. "Tell me what I can do to help." Her smile faded. "What makes you think I need your help?" "I'm not rich," I said, "but I have some money. Tell me what it is you need." So here we've got Jeannette, who's continuing to offer her help. So that makes me feel good about Jeannette. Even though she's got money, she is still trying to help her parents. She thought for a moment. "I could use an electrolysis treatment." Now, if you don't know what that is, that's like for removal of hair. Today we use lasers for that. But if you're a homeless person, that's not going to be what's on your top priorities there. So it's another silly statement. Be serious. I am serious. If a woman looks good, she feels good. Come on, Mom. I felt my shoulders tightening up the way they invariably did during these conversations. I'm talking about something that could help you change your life, make it better. You want to help me change my life? Mom asked. I'm fine. You're the one who needs help. Your values are all confused. Mom, I saw you picking through trash in the East Village a few days ago. Well, people in this country are too wasteful. It's my way of recycling. She took a bite of her seafood delight. Why didn't you say hello? I was too ashamed, Mom. I hid. Mom pointed her chopsticks at me. You see, she said, right there. That's exactly what I'm saying. You're way too easily embarrassed. Your father and I are who we are. Accept it. And what am I supposed to tell people about my parents? Just tell the truth, Mom said. That's simple enough. Okay, so she's talking to her mother, who is homeless and offering help, and the mom is saying that it's Jeannette who's confused and her values are messed up because she's too easily embarrassed by them. Let's continue reading on in the next section. The desert. I was on fire. Okay, that right there grabs your attention, doesn't it? I was on fire. That's how it starts. It's my earliest memory. I was 3 years old, and we were living in a trailer park in a southern Arizona town whose name I never knew. Okay, so the first part, she was an adult, married, living in Park Avenue, well-to-do, and now she's going back, flashback, I guess, to when she was 3 years old in her earliest memory. I was standing on a chair in front of the stove wearing a pink dress my grandmother had bought for me. Pink was my favorite color. The dress's skirt stuck out like a tutu, and I liked to spin around in front of the mirror, thinking I looked like a ballerina. But at that moment, I was wearing the dress to cook hot dogs, watching them swell and bob in the boiling water as the late morning sunlight filtered in through the trailer's small kitchenette window. Okay, think about that for just a minute. She's 3 years old. She's standing on a chair in front of the stove with boiling water, cooking hot dogs. I can tell you, I would never let my two boys, when they were 3 years old, do that. No way. I could hear Mom in the next room. Okay. And her mom's in the next room, so apparently she's allowing this to happen. So I could hear Mom in the next room singing while she worked on one of her paintings. Juju, our black mutt, was watching me. I stabbed one of the hot dogs with a fork and bent over and offered it to him. The wiener was hot, so Juju licked at it tentatively. But when I stood up and started stirring the hot dogs again, I felt a blaze of heat on my right side. Oh no, this is not good. I turned to see where it was coming from and realized my dress was on fire. Frozen with fear, I watched the yellow-white flames make a ragged brown line up the pink fabric of my skirt and climb my stomach. Then the flames leaped up, reaching my face. This is really not good. She is on fire. I screamed. I smelled the burning and heard a horrible crackling as the fire singed my hair and eyelashes. Juju was barking. I screamed again. Mom ran into the room. "Mommy, help me!" I shrieked. I was still standing on the chair, swatting at the fire with the fork I had been using to stir the hot dogs. Okay, I'm going to stop right there. Now it's a mystery, right? What's going to happen next? And hopefully that will motivate you to read this story, to continue to read. Now we know she lives, so we know she couldn't die from this because she lived to write this story. Okay, remember to use strategies as you're reading. Work on those during reading strategies, and hopefully you got an example of how I did it, and you can continue the same way. Enjoy!